In 1964, Elizabeth Taylor made one really bad error. She confided in a journalist about her deepest secrets. They spent months meeting on cruises and in hotel rooms. She would lit a cigarette, pour whiskey, and open up. He was merely assisting her in writing her memoir, she believed. She was unaware of his covert recording of every word. Those tapes turned up half a century later. The woman whom everyone believed to be familiar had been leading two separate lives. She even gave it the name Cellophane Elizabeth. The truth was considerably more sinister. In London, Elizabeth Taylor was born on February 27, 1932. Her life seemed like a movie from the beginning. She was born into a family of affluent American art merchants. Their home was in the upscale district of Hampstead Garden, and they operated an art gallery on Bond Street. Among the well-known politicians and artists they knew was Colonel Victor Cazalet, who unofficially became her godfather. But it wasn't all glamour in life. As war loomed in 1939, the U.S. Joseph P. Kennedy, the ambassador, instructed her father to evacuate the family. Elizabeth escaped on the SS Manhattan with her mother and brother in April of that year. Later, her father joined them, but he stayed behind to close the gallery. They made their home in Pasadena, followed by Beverly Hills. Before long, they were a part of the social scene in Hollywood. At the age of 7, Elizabeth's world was irrevocably altered by this momentous event. Elizabeth was the center of attention even as a little child. She took dance instruction when she was 3 years old. She was extraordinary, not merely good. Princess Margaret and Princess Elizabeth even had her dance. Few kids could picture such a crowd. It was made feasible by the contacts her parents had. Her mother was an actress, and high society in Britain was part of their circle. Elizabeth's talent was well known by the time they relocated to Los Angeles. There was no objection when a pal proposed a Hollywood screen test. Before she had ever made it to Hollywood, she had entertained princesses with her performances. It seemed as though she had always been destined for stardom. In 1942, at the age of 10, Elizabeth landed her first film part in There's One Born Every Minute. She was signed for 7 years by Universal Pictures. But they let her go after just one movie. They believed she was too mature and unappealing to audiences. That was a major blunder of a decision. Everyone others saw Elizabeth's star power. MGM grabbed her up in a flash. Universal lost the opportunity to mold one of the greatest stars in history. For more than 60 years, Elizabeth enthralled admirers and won 2 Oscars. Universal's defeat turned into MGM's victory. Hollywood altered in 1943 when MGM signed Elizabeth. She starred in National Velvet in 1944 at the age of 12. She portrayed a girl who rode in the Grand National by posing as a boy. The movie was popular. It nearly cost Elizabeth a special juvenile Oscar. Finished just behind Peggy and Garner. However, the position had a cost. She had to grow taller according to a rigid regimen in order to play Velvet Brown. During filming, she also fell off her horse and suffered a serious back injury. She was permanently affected by that injury. Nevertheless, the horse was a gift from the producers to her. She was made famous by the film. MGM offered her a new deal worth $750 per week. A great deal for a youngster in the 1940s. She was destined to become a legend. MGM arranged Elizabeth's first marriage when she was 18. It was to the hotel's heir, Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr. Her image needed to remain marketable and tidy, according to the studio. Her wedding gown was even purchased by them. The marriage, however, was a complete failure behind the scenes. Hilton was violent and drank a lot. On one occasion, he kicked Elizabeth so violently that she lost their child. It was an 8-month marriage. Due to his mental brutality, she filed for divorce from him in January 1951. In addition to shattering her innocence, this marriage demonstrated how studios exploited their stars for financial gain. There was no serenity in leaving Hilton. This divorce infuriated MGM. Elizabeth was punished because they wished to preserve their reputation. She was coerced into appearing in the cheesy romantic comedy Love Is Better Than Ever, 2004. She had no talent for it. The movie did not advance her career. The message was unambiguous. You will pay if you disobey the studio. Studios handled their biggest stars in this way, particularly women. More important than happiness or safety was image. Ivanhoe, however, made a shift in 1952. Despite her minor part in the movie becoming a big smash, Elizabeth didn't like it. It brought in $1.3 million in 39 days. It earned $5.8 million in the United States and Canada and $5 million abroad. That amounted to $11 million globally. It was a hit in England as well as MGM's highest-earning film that year. The movie was nominated for 2 Golden Globes and 3 Oscars. Elizabeth's celebrity status was now indisputable. People came to see her even when she didn't enjoy a part. Elizabeth's private life was once again shifting in that same year. Her first kid was on the way when she married British actor Michael Wilding. But finances were limited. She agreed to a new 7-year deal with MGM to ensure her safety. She received $4,700 a week from them. That's more than $55,000 a week in today's currency. In addition to giving the studio additional control over Wilding, the contract provided a loan for a house and work. Despite her desire for better roles, Elizabeth had to accept the ones that MGM offered her. She found herself confined. Along with security and financial gain, the contract also strengthened links to a system that prioritized profit over the interests of its owners. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Elizabeth Taylor's life was like an unanticipated storm. At her Benedict Canyon home, she threw a lavish supper on May 12, 1956. It was supposed to be a beautiful evening, but all of that changed in a flash. Montgomery Clift left early, her friend. He collided with a telephone pole a few hundred yards from her driveway. The collision was vicious. His face was broken. His nose cracked. His jaw broke. Many of the teeth were knocked out. Taylor got the news quickly. She rushed to the wreck without thinking, barefoot. Before the ambulance arrived, she arrived. He was choking on his own teeth, Cliff. He had blood gushing from his mouth. Taylor made no hesitation. She inserted her hand into his throat and extracted pieces of bone and teeth. Cliff's expression changed forever, yet she saved his life that night. The accident permanently scarred him. Nevertheless, her courage that evening turned into one of the most remarkable tales of friendship Hollywood has ever seen. Her devotion didn't end with saving his life, though. Cliff's career collapsed after the disaster. His appearance vanished. Studios referred to him as uninsurable. The situation worsened due to his increasing alcohol and opioid addiction. Taylor stepped in abruptly last summer in 1959 when MGM declined to cast him. She issued a command to them. Clift would either walk or be cast. They became frightened. Clift posed a danger. Taylor then took an unexpected action. As insurance, she offered her personal $500,000 income. In those days, that was a fortune. She helped Clift get the part. Taylor once again shown how far she would go for a friend in the movie, which received many Oscar nominations. However hard she tried, she ultimately failed to save him. Cliff lost his life to a heart attack on July 23, 1966. He was just 45. They intended to collaborate once more on Reflections in a Golden Eye. But he passed away with that dream. Taylor's heart was broken. He was her soulmate, the person who truly understood her, she said. Her anguish, remorse, and sorrow were exacerbated by his passing and the passing of her husband, Mike Todd. For the rest of her life, they followed her. Her struggles with addiction and strained relationships were linked to that suffering. Her happiest moments had been spent with Mike Todd. In Acapulco, they were married on February 2, 1957. Liza, their daughter, was born in August of that year. Todd lavished her with lavish gifts and affection. She wore the enormous diamond he once gave her as a pendant. Madison Square Garden was even booked by him for her birthday. However, happiness gave way to tragedy. The Lucky Liz, Todd's aircraft, crashed in New Mexico on March 27, 1958. In an instant, he passed away. Taylor had been 26 years old. She was heartbroken by the loss. When she heard it, she fell. There was no way to comfort her. She was driven by grief to Todd's best buddy, Eddie Fisher. That partnership descended into controversy. America's sweetheart at the time, Debbie Reynolds, was Fisher's wife. Taylor was portrayed as a home destructor. She was referred to by the media as a home-damaging slut. As Fisher moved from Reynolds to Taylor, the country looked on. Fisher married Taylor 3 hours after his divorce was finalized on May 12, 1959. However, the union was doomed. She never loved him, Taylor later acknowledged. He served as a crutch for her while she was grieving. Their shared life was lonely. Desperate to get away, she even tried to end it all by eating sleeping pills in front of him. However, she lived, and she felt a great deal of regret over it all. Fisher became envious as things fell apart. Fisher intimidated Taylor in 1961 when she fell in love with Richard Burton. He pointed a revolver at her head while standing over her while she slept on multiple occasions. "She's too pretty to shoot," he whispered. Every time she attempted to fall asleep, he would have the gun next to her, caressing her arm and repeating the threat. She eventually ran away, leaving him behind and taking her kids. Taylor detested the movie Butterfield 8, which earned her her first Oscar in 1961. She accepted the part in order to complete her contract with MGM. It was a hollow victory. She thought the Academy had given her the prize out of compassion. Pneumonia had almost killed her that year. For times she stopped breathing after having a tracheotomy. Even news outlets accidentally reported her death. After she prevailed and lived. Not because she was acting, but because it was a reward for her experience. Between 1958 and 1964, Elizabeth Taylor endured more suffering and tragedy than most people do in their lifetime. She was dubbed the most despised lady in America by the people. She was chased by protesters. Hate mail and death threats were sent. "Go home, Liz," said the signs at Fisher's shows. She persevered as it all happened. Afterwards, she declared, "I am a living example of what people can go through and survive." That's just what she was. When Cleopatra was released in theaters in 1963, it was more than just a film. A Hollywood earthquake occurred. The budget went into overdrive, reaching $44 million, or more than $426 million in today's currency. No one had ever spent that much money on a movie. Compared to Ben-Hur, it was 3 times more costly. 20th Century Fox was almost devastated by the expense. The budget's craziness was matched by the mayhem behind the scenes. The first director was let go. Complete costumes and sets were discarded and recreated. When Elizabeth Taylor was filming in London, she nearly passed away from illness. She had to be saved by the production's relocation to Rome. But it wasn't the gold-covered sets that truly drew attention from around the globe. That was the case with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. They fell in love while on that set. The picture itself was eclipsed by their love story. In a letter to Burton, studio head Darryl F. Zanuck even referred to them as a combo. People flocked to the theaters not just to watch the movie but also to observe the fervor that had swept Hollywood. The studio was spared collapse because to that passion. The romance stopped Cleopatra in her tracks, not merely appending gossip columns. Their affair burst into the public eye in early 1962. At the time, both were wed. Taylor was with Eddie Fisher. Burton was accompanied by Sybil Williams. Then came the picture of them cuddling on an Iskian yacht that was the turning point in their relationship. The press exploded. Stars suddenly found it impossible to conceal their personal lives. Filming was stopped by 20th Century Fox because of the scandal. It cost $100,000 a day off, which was a huge amount in the 1960s. On set, several passed out from weariness. The production manager became so sick that he departed and passed away shortly after. Burton's journal described nights filled with passion. "A one-night stand that will last forever," he called Taylor. As if there were no other people there, they continued kissing even after the cameras stopped. A struggling movie became a worldwide sensation as a result of the event, which also permanently altered the way the press and Hollywood operated. Hollywood wasn't the only place with turmoil. With the entire globe watching, many people were incensed. The Vatican publication attacked Taylor in 1962. She was accused of erotic vagrancy for her love of Burton while she was still married. Their affair was referred to as an insult to the hearth's nobility. Around the world, the fury made headlines. Some American politicians even proposed prohibiting them from returning to the United States due to their moral deterioration. At the same time, their romance came to represent both extravagance and freedom. Security on the set has to be tightened. Threats were made against Taylor, and the Italian FBI became involved. However, Burton and Taylor refused to give up. On March 15, 1964, Taylor and Fisher got divorced, 10 days after Fisher's divorce was finalized. Burton and she were married in Montreal. It was viewed by the Globe as a huge scandal as well as a win for love. During their era, they were the most talked about pair. Not all of Taylor's media attention was focused on her romantic life. She also violated Hollywood's wage regulations. Cleopatra was the first performer, male or female, to receive $1 million for a single film. She didn't stop there either. She was able to get overtime pay of $50,000 per week. Although the shoot was supposed to end in 16 weeks, it continued for 2 years. In the end, Taylor made over $7 million. That's around $60 million in today's currency. She received a share of the movie's earnings as well. It was the first time a star had done that. She set the example for later actors. Taylor's celebrity power complemented her commercial acumen. She also sent along some of her requests to Eddie Fisher when they were negotiating her deal from her bathtub. She raised a champagne toast when Fox agreed. She broke the glass ceiling for women in the film industry and permanently altered the way that celebrities are compensated. Richard Burton's own words, recorded in his journals, demonstrate his intense obsession with Taylor. He used poetic and unvarnished language while describing her attractiveness. He described her as incredibly attractive and talked about her unique and perilous beauty. He gave a detailed description of her physique, including her lips and figure. He wrote in one entry that she was more lovely than any pornographic dream. She was a pain in his stomach when they were apart, he wrote. Despite admitting he was totally enchanted by her, he thought she had improved him as a man. Although their flaming relationship was visible to the world, his private remarks revealed the depth of his affection. In 1966, Elizabeth Taylor astonished everyone. Because who is scared of Virginia Woolf? She changed herself at the age of 33. Her weight increased by 30 pounds. She allowed herself to appear prickly, furious, and resentful. Although it was shocking to audiences who were aware of her exceptional beauty, it was successful. The movie received 13 Oscar nominations and took home 5 of them. She won the Oscar for Second Best Actress. There had never been nominations for all 4 of the key actors. Every American film convention was broken by the unvarnished, ugly tale of a shattered marriage. It was conserved by the Library of Congress as a cultural and historical asset in 2013, decades later. Elizabeth was willing to risk all for her work, as that movie demonstrated. Her life off-screen was equally intense. There were a lot of crazy arguments in her marriage to Richard Burton that left even acquaintances dumbfounded. In 1969, Burton wrote about a fight in his diary. With her ringed fingers, Taylor struck him in the head while intoxicated and enraged. "If any man had done it, I would have murdered him," he said. Their debates were vicious. She accused him of being intoxicated, lying, arrogance, and avarice, among other things. While their love was intense, their arguments were even more intense. Frequently, friends were unsure about whether to intervene or flee. Many of their pains were driven by alcohol. According to Burton, Taylor would go to bed high and speak like a crazy child in a baby voice. At breakfast, they began drinking, and they continued until they passed out at night. Taylor later acknowledged using demoral and Jack Daniels while she was in the hospital. "I was higher than a kite," she claimed. There was no way to talk. She was too inebriated to follow. They almost died from their drinking. It was the first divorce by June 1974. Burton felt devastated. "She is my life," he wrote. They couldn't stay apart, yet their breakup made headlines all around the world. They remarried in Botswana 16 months later. Taylor was dressed in feathered green. Burton was dressed in crimson, both shirt and socks. It took 20 minutes to complete the ceremony. By the river, they celebrated with champagne. The world hoped it meant finally peace. But quickly, the fissures appeared. It took less than 9 months for that second marriage to fail. It was February 1976 before they parted ways. July saw the divorce. Alcohol, envy, violent altercations, and the same old issues all reappeared. Passion was not going to save them. Burton then got married twice more before passing away in 1984. Taylor had 2 additional marriages. Their tale turned into an unsustainable love mythology. John Warner was Taylor's subsequent spouse in 1976. She originally aided his Senate campaign. People flocked to see her, but she felt lonely and bored in Washington. She felt confined and abandoned while Warner concentrated on politics. Like a Republican lady being instructed not to wear purple to her lunch, she subtly protested. She referred to that period as lonely and dull. It was December 1981 that they split up. The separation occurred in November of 1982. During that marriage, she lost her health and her soul. It was a severe depression. There was speculation regarding her weight gain. Even worse, she started taking more drugs and alcohol. 3 physicians wrote 1,000 prescriptions for 28 medications between 1983 and 1988. She must be dead, according to an expert who studied the doses, which were so severe. She blended demoral with brandy. She used Valium and sleeping pills at night. Dazed, she would wake up and bump into walls. Without assistance, she would have perished, she admitted. Her family provided the support. An intervention was organized by Roddy McDowell, her brother, and her children. They implored her to seek assistance. "Yes," she said. Following a final night. The Betty Ford Center was where she checked in December 1983. She remained for 7 weeks. She came clean. "Elizabeth is who I am. I'm both an alcoholic and an addict." She felt humbled by it. They were in the same room. Although it saved her, she did chores. And it encouraged many others to seek assistance as well. Throughout it all, Taylor disclosed a little-known fact. Because she was shy, she drank. "My shyness is terrible," she added. "I drink to be brave." However, she felt worse after drinking the alcohol that made her babble. Her dependence merely grew as a result of her heavy drinking without seeming intoxicated. For over half a century, 40 hours of Elizabeth Taylor's most intimate thoughts were left unnoticed in an attic. These intensely private talks were captured by journalist Richard Merriman between 1964 and 1965 as he ghostwrote her memoir. On the ship sailing the Atlantic, in the smoke-filled rooms with secrets, and during their sessions at the Beverly Hills Hotel, he had recorded her unfiltered voice. It was never intended for the world to hear the tapes. The tapes were discovered among Merriman's belongings by his widow after his death in 2015. The Taylor estate eventually took them back by 2019. The Lost Tapes, an Elizabeth Taylor documentary on HBO, was centered around those same tapes in 2024. Taylor's true self, unguarded, emotive, and genuine, was heard for the first time. It never occurred to Elizabeth Taylor that anyone outside of Merriman would ever hear her words. She opened out during the 40 hours of conversation in unexpected ways. She kept pausing and telling him, "That's off the record," or "You can't use that in the book." She believed she was in control. It's why she talked so openly. The recordings show her regrets over failed marriages, her breakup with Eddie Fisher, and the suffering that comes with being famous. She discussed intimate moments with James Dean and the horrifying abuse she endured in her previous marriage, which she did not include in her published memoir. Nanette Burstein, the director of the documentary, clarified that if Taylor had realized that the public would eventually pay attention, she would never have spoken these facts. Alcohol was also a factor. Cocktails, whiskey, and champagne were all present during the interviews. Glasses clinked and smoke swirled, whether in hotel rooms, nightclubs, or even on a houseboat. It was the alcohol that broke down barriers. Taylor was forced to laugh, cry, and make a brutally honest confession. The meetings evolved beyond simple interviews. They provided insight into the solitary, strained life of a star. With every drink, the mask appeared to be removed, revealing the true woman. Sitting across from her at a table covered in empty drinks while she revealed the details of a life spent in the spotlight, you can practically feel the atmosphere. On the inside, Taylor fought her own inner demons. She said that, despite being regarded as one of the most attractive women in the world, she felt like a fake. Inside, she told Merriman, she felt like a scared little girl who had been thrust too quickly into adulthood. She questioned her attractiveness and felt embarrassed that others found her attractive. The headlines, the scandals, and the 8 marriages to 7 men all gave her the impression that she was a bad person. She suffered abuse and a devastating miscarriage in her previous marriage, which left her with severe scars. She had the heavy burden of a childhood influenced by celebrity and studios behind the glitz. Especially noteworthy is Taylor's self-description. She claimed to have 2 personalities. The Elizabeth Taylor her family knew existed. A woman of flesh and blood. She also referred to the other Elizabeth Taylor as cellophane. That was the end result, the Hollywood production that millions of people saw but no one knew. This division kept her going. A normal life and love were what the real Elizabeth yearned for. The cellophane Elizabeth put up with the rumors and grinned for the cameras. Tim Mendelsohn, her assistant, could see how obviously she maintained these 2 parts apart. Fear took over the globe in 1985. The rapid spread of AIDS was not well understood. The illness claimed the life of Rock Hudson, a close friend of Elizabeth Taylor, that year. She was irrevocably altered by that. The majority of celebrities either remained silent or avoided the problem, while Taylor took a different tack. She made a statement. In 1985, she helped establish the Foundation for AIDS Research, also known as AMFAR. Her prominence helped bring attention to a condition that many people were afraid of. Taylor, however, did more than just talk, she worked. She contributed to the almost $325 million research fundraising. She helped more than 2,000 scientists worldwide. To provide patients with direct care, she founded the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation in 1991. She saved lives. Not only did she raise funds, she altered the public's perception of AIDS and those living with it. When others fled, Taylor took the initiative. Fear and hate were all around AIDS. Many stars stayed away from it. However, Taylor was unique. When others departed, AMFAR's Dr. Mervyn Silverman described herself as the Lone Star. She paid patients a visit. She was in charge of fundraising. She even addressed Congress, pleading for assistance. The 1987 U.S. immigration ban for individuals with HIV was one of the discriminatory practices she battled against. Despite the risk to her personal reputation, she showed little concern. She made the world realize the reality. She influenced others to care about the ill. She became a star activist leader because of her bravery. Taylor was not only a movie star. She was also an intelligent businesswoman. She introduced her debut fragrance, Passion, in 1987. In 1991, White Diamonds appeared. That fragrance was a huge hit. White Diamonds reported $1.5 billion in revenue by 2018. The contemporary celebrity fragrance industry was influenced by Taylor. Everything about it, from the advertisements to the odor, involved her. She became wealthy from her perfume brand than from playing. The value of her fortune at the time of her death ranged from $600 million to $1 billion. Currently, her AIDS Foundation receives 20% of white diamond sales. Taylor demonstrated that people might benefit from business as well. Her most recent marriage was unique. The Betty Ford Clinic is when she first met Larry Fortensky. He was a construction worker, 20 years younger. Both of them were in recovery, battling their inner demons. At Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch, they were married in 1991. It was a major story. Even if every detail was reported by the media, the pressure was too great. 1996 saw their divorce. In the settlement, Fortensky received $1 million, and in her will, she later received $800,000. They had a genuine, uncomplicated love that was free of Hollywood glamour. Taylor followed her heart, even as she grew older. Her own rules governed her life. March 23, 2011, was Elizabeth Taylor's death date. She was 79 years old. She died with her 4 children at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. With her passing, a golden age came to an end. Beyond being a movie star, she was more. She was a fighter, a legend, and a giver. The $600 million to $1 billion in her fortune demonstrated her success outside of the spotlight. She was mourned by people everywhere. Her heart and desire were recalled. Her nonprofit continues to combat HIV and AIDS today.